welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 357, and today's date is May 3rd, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Now, before I get started, I just want to thank those people who donated. I really appreciate it. I am very grateful. Thank you very much. And for those people who have never visited the X22Report.com site, I do have many different things on the site. I have a forum called The People. This is like-minded people talking about the economic collapse. It is completely free to join. If you're hesitant in joining, you can still read the forum, and you can, see what people are saying. I also put up Sentinel alerts, which are articles, and most of the time I comment on them. I have a high-level view called the economic collapse of what has been happening leading up to the next collapse of the entire economy, and I also track products for inflation or deflation, and I'll be updating that this weekend. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, yesterday we understand the unemployment numbers came out and it dropped from 6.7 to 6.3%. And in the New York Times, they made a really great point to explain what exactly happened here. And what they are saying is the number of people in the labor force fell by about 806,000, wiping out the gains in February and March and some in January. The labor force participation rate fell by 0.4% to about 62.8%, and this is returning it to the December level. Now, if we really look at this, the people reporting they were unemployed fell to about 733,000, which sounds good on its surface, but paired with similar size decline in labor force points to job seekers, what we are seeing is that 2.8 times as many people dropped out as found jobs. So there are a lot more people dropping out than actually finding jobs to work in. And this goes back to what has been happening and how they manipulate these numbers. Those people who've been on an interview or have not been on an interview in 4 weeks are not counted. So if you have been on an interview within the 4 weeks, you're still counted. If you have not, you are not counted in the unemployment numbers. So even though you're sending out resumes, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the line, you are considered no longer looking, and you completely have fallen off the job market right now. And this is how they are manipulating a lot of these numbers. Now, if you do find a job, and let's say you were making $60,000, $70,000 in a full-time job and you found 2 part-time jobs, you are counted twice. So that's 2 jobs added to the unemployment calculation. So you can see how this is completely manipulated, and you can see how they are using these numbers to convince everyone that we are in a economic recovery, and it is a complete illusion. I mean, they're just continually throwing numbers out there, manipulating them any way they want. They go back to the prior month, they revise them, they don't say a word, and nobody understands what's going on here. Now, in the real estate market, we're seeing the same exact thing. They are manipulating a lot of the numbers. They're feeding free money into hedge funds and investment companies. They are making cash purchases on homes. And what this means is those Americans, those people who've lost 38% of their wealth in 2008, lost their homes in 2008, lost their jobs in 2008, lost their credit in 2008, no longer really have the ability to purchase another home at this time. Some people do get around it, but the majority of the people don't have the ability, and a lot of people had nice paying jobs. Now they're in a lower paying jobs or have a couple of part-time paying jobs. So they're really not looking for the homes, and of course the corporate media is out there saying that, oh, it's the boomerang effect. Those people who had bad credit, lost their jobs, they're coming back into the market. No, they're not. That's why they're putting in subprime adjustable rate mortgages. They're trying to get anyone that has a pulse to purchase these houses from the hedge fund and the investment companies. But what we've been seeing in Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, we've been seeing mortgage originations continually declining since 2012, since they've been pumping up this market. And right now, JP Morgan is out there saying, yes, the second quarter of housing is going to be horrible. They're saying because of the interest rates are going to continually rise, like 0.3% or 0.2%, and that's just going to demolish the housing market. Really, these people do not have the cash to buy or the ability to take out a mortgage to buy these homes at this time. And this is why they've been lowering the down payments also from 20 to 25%. Now it's down to 5. They brought it even down to 3. And I've seen places that are offering 0%, 100% financing at this time. And they're saying that the mortgage banking in the second quarter is going to be horrific. The profits are going to be very low. And we understand this because I don't care what the corporate media is saying, what the president is saying, what the Fed is saying. This is an illusion. And from all the evidence of these banks with their mortgage departments laying off tens of thousands of people, this is letting us know people are not taking out mortgages. Americans are not buying these homes. They don't have the ability, they don't have the funds, they don't have the credit. And this is going to drive the real estate market down even further. It's going to get worse, and this is why we're seeing retail stores closing. I just went to Radio Shack today to get a battery, and I walked up. The whole thing's closed, cleared out. And I remembered back, yes, they're closing, like 1,500 stores. The jobs, the stores, they are disappearing at this time. Now, we understand in Syria the elections are coming up this June, and Ban Ki-moon is already out there, and he's saying that the preparation for the presidential election in Syria, scheduled for June 3rd, he believes they do not conform to the spirit of the Geneva Communique. The Secretary General noted that his position was shared by the United Nations, the Arab League, and the United States. But of course it's not in the spirit. And we have to look at what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in Syria. They've been blaming Assad because he's been using military force on his own people, and he should not be president, and we have to have him replaced. So we look at the acting puppet government in Ukraine using military force on their own people. What is the difference here? There isn't any difference. Well, Assad is elected by the people. In Ukraine, this government was put into place by the United States central bankers. That's one difference, if you like to call it a difference. And again, we have to look at this. The United States central bankers do not have a puppet government that they control in Syria. So the people, they're behind the people. They want democracy. They want the right to have a different type of an election. In Ukraine, they put a puppet government in control, and the people have no rights. They're terrorists. We're fully behind the puppet government. And even the IMF, the banksters, are saying, listen, you need to do this or you're not getting your money. So we can see what is happening here at the time. Now, of course, the NATO chief, he is out there, and he is saying Putin may be able to accomplish his objectives with simply the unrest his forces are causing in eastern Ukraine right now. There are no eastern Ukraine Russian forces there. These are the people. Now, I put videos up in the Sentinel alerts, and there's one video that shows the APC units and the military coming into a neighborhood, and the people who live in the neighborhood are telling them to get out, you fascist pigs. And they're screaming, they're filming it. What we are seeing here is that the United States central bankers and NATO are trying to make it look like Russia is involved in this, because they are trying to provoke and convince the world that we will need to go to war with Russia, and they're provoking all this. Now, the people are holding the buildings peacefully. They don't want armed forces there. They want their right to have some type of referendum to secede from this puppet government. And what is happening is Ukraine, the bankers, the United States central bankers will not let this happen, and this is why you're seeing the amount of force being used in Ukraine at this time, because their whole purpose is to crush these people so they will not have any type of an election. Now, we understand that the people of Donetsk captured spies. They were posing as OSCE observers. They were from NATO, and they were released. All 12 of them, they were released with the help of Russia saying, let's release these people, it's time, and let's send them back. And they set up a route they wanted to use to bring these people back into Ukraine. And the Kiev government was initially reluctant to support the mission of returning these people because it kind of messed up their story of why they were mounting this attack, because they had to get these terrorists that were holding these innocent people, and they didn't really want to accept the 12 people at this time. And what this went on to say from the Russia's foreign ministry, we get the impression that the Kiev administration views the mission as something handicapping their plans to start the attack on Slavansk in the coming hours. And again, I've said this before, the central bankers, United States government, will only do one thing. They will only use force to get their way, and they will continually use force and provoke Russia as much as they can. And what's happening right now? Russia is just sitting back. They are doing absolutely nothing. But let's see what the other side has done so far. They have brought in paid mercenaries, Blackwater, created a coup, spent $5 billion to overthrow Ukrainian government. And of course, they signed an agreement with Ukrainian government where they were going to have peace. And hours later, they said, forget that. Let's go in and storm the buildings. Let's just take over the country. We had these recordings from Victoria Nuland talking about who she was going to place into power months before the coup actually happened. Then the United States central banker said, well, Russia's invading Crimea. They're trying to take over. No, they didn't. They had forces all set up in Crimea because they had the agreement with the Ukraine government at the time. They were allowing them to use the base in Crimea. They were allowed to have up to 25,000 troops. And they gave Ukraine a discount on the gas prices. And of course, the coup came in. They said Russia's building up their forces, never saw the forces. They were observers observing the elections. They said it went very peaceful. There was no military there whatsoever. The people voted that they didn't want to be a part of Ukraine. Now we have the southeastern section. The people are out there saying we do not want to be a part of this. And what has happened? The people have gone in, taken over some government buildings. They haven't killed anyone. They didn't do anything to any people. And all of a sudden we saw troops, military force, helicopters, snipers, APCs, all moving in, causing havoc. And then we also saw the opposition in masks with bats, Molotov cocktails, all trying to create some type of incident to really rile the people up and get them doing something that they normally wouldn't do. And that kind of fell on its face. It didn't really work out. And now the anti-terrorism forces are continually pushing forward. And of course, we had that de-escalation Geneva Agreement where the military didn't back down whatsoever. They kept all forces locked into place, and a couple of hours later, they went forward and moved in on the people. So none of this has to do with Russia at this time. There have been no Russia forces, no planes there, nothing in this region whatsoever. All the force and all the military might is coming from the acting puppet government at this time. Now, the Ukrainian forces are starting to move into the area of Mariupol right now in the Donetsk region, and special force units are in the city center. Mainly, they are deployed in yards and making warning shots from there. Residents are unarmed. They block the roads in the city center, built up barricades from tires and other things not to let hardware pass. And then they set the tires on fire to make a barrier so they couldn't get in. Now, of course, Ukraine said military operations against pro-Russian separatists. And of course, forget pro-Russian separatists. These are Ukrainian people okay, who want the right to secede from the puppet government. And they are saying that they set these operations in motion to move into these towns, and the active phase of the operation continued at dawn. And Avakov wrote on his Facebook page, "We are not going to stop with these operations. We are going to continue and force these people to do what we want." And we can see this is exactly their whole entire thing that they're trying to do. They're trying to use a strong man's hand against these people and bring them in line. This, or wipe them out completely. I mean, you can see what is going on here. It is clear as day, and they're continually provoking. And if you notice, it's not the people of Ukraine. It's always always use the term pro-Russian. They always bring into Russia that they're doing something, that they're there, they're egging these people on, they have the forces, but all I see is the military from Ukraine. And of course, they named them anti-terrorism forces, and these are the people. If you look at the one video of the APC unit and the military soldiers in a neighborhood, it's just the people. They're in sweatshirts. They're like, "Get out, get out, get out," and you can see how this is really going at this point. Now, with this missing flight MH370, we see that a 7-minute audio recording of the final conversations between pilots of the missing Malaysian jet and teams of air traffic controllers on the ground were released. The recordings, we were finding out, they were edited, leading many to wonder if the entire conversation wasn't fabricated on a soundstage. And if so, why would they do this? And if we really look at that, if we look at the recordings, it's very strange. The audio video forensic expert and registered investigator Ed Premieux of Premieux Forensics, who has analyzed hundreds of audio recordings, has said that the beginning and end of the recordings are high quality with low noise floor, meaning ambient background noise is almost silent, unlike the middle. Beginning at 1:14, continuing through 2:06 to 2:15, it's a digital recording being held up to a speaker, also implying some editing. The middle section was recorded with a microphone near a speaker, but it would be very unusual to find a background differential at the same time, suggesting the Malaysian authorities, whoever presented this, made edits for whatever reason. Now, I'm going to go back to my theory that this plane, it might be repainted, it might be whatever they're going to do, but we will see this plane once again. It will most likely be carrying some type of payload headed into the United States for the false flag event. And we also understand that Israel has a duplicate airplane which is kept in the hangar in Israel, except the only difference between that plane and this plane is that the Israeli plane is the long-range model that can fly 1,200 miles. So we can see that all of this is being fabricated, and this plane will most likely be used for some type of an event, because we understand the central bankers, everything that they plan right now is not going the way they wanted, and they're losing control. The people in the Middle East are rising up. They're taking back their countries. They're already getting ready to send international forces into Libya. We have the elections coming up in Syria, and John Kerry is out there, and he's speaking to Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, and he's saying that there can be no more delays of these chemical weapons. Assad can't use this as a bargaining chip, and he needs to get the last 8% out of the country as fast as possible, or else. And we also understand that the rebels were instructed to delay the removal of the chemical weapons to make it look like Assad was delaying it. But Assad really has nothing to do with this. The UN Security Council, Russia, and the United States were all handling the removal of the chemical weapons. And, of course, UN also reported that moving the chemical weapons along the roads and into the ports, there was heavy gunfire from the rebels, making it very difficult to move these containers out of the country. And they're going to use this to say that Assad has kept chemical weapons, has kept biological weapons, and will use this either on his own people or in the United States. Now, the FBI is out there, and the FBI is warning the flow of U.S. militants into Syria is growing, and we could have another 9/11 on our hands. The director of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has warned that the number of those joining the al-Qaeda-linked militants in Syria is growing in the United States. He said that the people who travel from the United States and other countries to fight in Syria may become radicalized. All of us with a memory of the 80s and 90s saw the line drawn from Afghanistan in the 80s and 90s to September 11th, he said. We see Syria as that, but in order of magnitude worse from what we saw in Afghanistan, because more foreign militants are crossing into Syria, and we could have another 9/11 happen here in the United States. They are preparing us. And like I said, this event, we're at the end game, people. This next event, like I said, they are going to go all out in what is coming. They are not going to hold back, because this is their last chance. They are losing control of Ukraine, the Middle East, Central Africa. The dollar is dying. The yuan, the ruble are rising. They have no alternative. If all else fails across the ocean, they will bring these events here to the United States to really push the people into war. And this is how they are planning this. They're planning this with physical attacks on the power grid, cyber attacks on the power grid. This Malaysian plane, we will probably see it reintroduced into the United States with some type of payload. We will see other biological nuclear weapons going off across the country, because they really need to hit every single city to make the country say, oh my God, they are attacking us everywhere. Last time it was pretty much Washington, Pennsylvania, that area, New York. This time they need the whole country to be shocked completely. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.